Hey, what's up YouTube? So I did want to quickly profile the TAMAYURA list I did use to go, I think, get second place at Versus. It was just like a small 3-round tournament. I think there was like 9 people in total. But I did go X1, the only loss, which was the loss you saw on the last video, which was against the very cool Best Harvest Jiva deck. But I wanted to quickly go over this and also apologize if you do hear background noise. I do have family over and they're just like doing chores around the house. One of my uncles is like washing my aunt's car, and then I believe my mom is like currently like just like washing the dishes and then like making breakfast right now, and then I kind of have to go after this, so I am going to, sorry that the cards aren't sleeved up. Again, I borrowed my friend's deck, and I did tell you guys in the profile that I was going to make changes to the deck that I felt like the deck needed. So getting onto the ride line here of the profile, the TAMAYURA ride line, nothing really much to say here. It searches for your Fox Art order cards, which you do play, and it searches for your girls, like the grade 1 girls and the grade 2 girls, so there's really not much to say here. And then getting onto the main deck, you play 3 copies of Persona Ride. It's very important that you do Persona Ride in this deck. This deck is a very much Persona Ride relying deck. If you do only have the 5K, and it's like not like the late game, where like it'll still matter. It's like the mid game or like the early game. Like it is a real feels bad. So you really do need the Persona Ride in this deck. 4 copies of the girl that's Soul Blast 2. Put a card to Soul on your opponent's board. And sorry guys, I'm so bad with names here. I'm not even going to attempt them. So I'm just gonna put another like 4 copies of the girl that's Soul Blast 2 to draw a card. Again, like, I felt like because this deck feels like everything's a 2-card combo, whereas you want 1 of each name every turn, it really did feel like that I had to max out on the girl names, which in my friend's deck at the time, he was like running 3 copies of each, which was kind of fine, but there was like a lot of times that I like saw his tech cards and I just wish it was like 1 of the girl names. 4 copies of the girl that when she 4 copies of the of the girl that when she boosts the girl that Soul Blast 2 put it into Soul, that you put the column into Soul at the end of the battle, and then you give 5k to one of your units. And then 4 copies of the girl that at the end of the battle that she boosted, you put the column to Soul, and then if she boosted the girl that was Soul Blast 2, draw a card. You get to Soul Blast 1, countercharge 1 if you haven't countercharged this turn. So again, I really did want to max out on all the doll names. It's really important, at least in my opinion, because you require at least 1 of each on your push turns / kill turns to be able to, you know, basically do something. And then going on to the order cards, we are playing 4 copies of Broken Toys. I'm actually not completely sure if we actually do play 4 copies of Broken Toys. If you don't have Broken Toys, don't feel 100% bad. It's something that's a nice to have, but not like a need to have. Because my friend actually, he didn't have Broken Toys for the Kingslayer cards event, and he was able to get top 16 with his TAMAYURA list. The only thing missing was Broken Toys. He was just playing more copies of Forktail. So if you don't have Broken Toys, like, don't feel 100% bad. It's a nice to have, not like a need to have, in my personal opinion, considering its price tag. But if you do have them, I consider running them in some numbers. I don't know if 4 copies is the correct decision. Maybe like 3 or 2 is more optimal, but we're still playtesting. We are like gonna do an extreme playtest session, which I am gonna have videos for on the channel for Springfest Duluth. So I'm getting on to the rest of the order cards here. We play 2 of the grade 3 Fox Art order, which you can search off the ride line. I think this is a very important card because it turns, again, this whole deck is 2-card combos in terms of you need either 1 of her and 1 of her, or 1 of her and 1 of her, or 1 of her and 1 of her, to where so like you could basically pop off and do like exactly what you want to do on your turn. So it's really nice that you could just Soul Blast 2 and then like get 1 of each girl from your drop zone. Not even from your Soul, it's just Soul Blast 2 and get 1 of each girl from your drop zone. So if you didn't have them in Soul to begin with, you could just like Soul Blast like dead cards, basically. Or you could Soul Blast the grade 1 girls and then call them out, and now you have a full board. So 2 of that, I feel like 2 is the maximum you want to play. I feel like 3 is too cloggy, and then 1 might be too little, but you could still play 1 in my opinion. I feel like ideally you just want to activate this card like 1 time. I feel like you're not going to have the soul to activate it twice. But you play 2 to see it, in my personal opinion. And then 1 Chalice. The reason I'm running Chalice in this list is because, again, it's very important that you Persona Ride. Like, you could see in the Jet matchup, the only way I killed was on Persona Ride turn. So if I didn't have Persona Ride on that turn, on turn 4 of the game, like, especially if I went first, I wasn't going to win. Because just 5k to the front board isn't enough to tear through their hand. Their hand really isn't that big. Well, it can get big, but the shield value really isn't that good of quality, in my personal opinion, in, like, standard Chrono Jet decks. But getting on to the Perfect Guards, one of the Blitz Order, this is mandatory for Chrono Jet just because it is considered the best deck in the format right now, and this does just like save your life, buy yourself a turn so you could just OTK them on the next turn. 3 copies of DPGs. DPGs are still really good. There's no reason not to play them unless you're playing the monster deck and you are playing the monster PGs. But there is still an argument to play DPGs because DPGs are that good and can just like stave you off a turn so you can kill them on the crackback. Getting on to the triggers, one of the one of the Dragon Empire over trigger. It's still really good in this deck, especially since Tamayura's ability to call one of each girl out from the soul isn't once per turn. So, like, technically, like, whereas you could do 5 attacks, you could actually do, like, an 8 attack combo, depending on your counterblast and depending on, like, your opponent's damage checks. But, like, if you are, like, quote-unquote doing something like that, more often than not, just checking the OT will win you the game in that scenario, unless they do get, like, key damage checks to whereas your rear guards, like, aren't hitting. 3 copies of the front triggers. We did realize in playtesting this deck early on, me and my friend, like, shoutouts to him, because he is the progenitor of this deck. Like, he is a really good player with this deck, in my opinion, and he has found his own way to build it / pilot it. Front triggers over draw triggers, just because you go through your deck so fast. The draws aren't really, like, you don't really need the draws. You actually prefer the fronts, because we're in a very aggressive format to whereas, like, fronts are good offensively and good defensively to whereas it staves you off a turn or two to whereas you can get to your kill turn or you can get to your push turn to be able to, like, you know, push your opponent back. And at least in my opinion, fronts are really good in this format. If you can play fronts, please do play fronts. 4 copies of the Into Soul crit. It's really, like, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But there are arguments to play 5k triggers over the Into Soul crit. There really isn't any combos anymore that you do with the Into Soul crit. Because more often than not, you're not going to have a booster behind your Vanguard unless it's a 5k, because the only boosters you run in this deck are the grade 1 girls. 4 vanilla crit just to max out on our critical triggers. You know, 8 crit is, you know, it's 8 crit. It's 8 crit. You really do want to play 8 crit in this format. And then 4 copies of regular heal triggers. I don't believe in the effect heals still. I know, like the crit one is really good against Ava, and I know Ava's a really popular deck, but, like, you're not guaranteed to see Ava unless, like, you're going into a tournament, whereas, like, you're guaranteed to see the matchup that you're running said heal trigger for, and you're gonna see that heal trigger in your hand at the exact moment you need it. The effect heals aren't worth it, in my personal opinion. Like, I've lost more games because it was a vanilla 10k than, like, say, oh, I won this game because I was able to guard for 25 with 1 card. Like, I've never had that scenario, but, you know, that's my personal experience with it. That's the deck profile, guys. I think this deck is a really solid deck, in my opinion. I would say it's, like, somewhere in tier 2. I wouldn't say high tier 2, but I wouldn't say low tier 2 either. But I would say, like, you can definitely take this deck to a competitive tournament with or without broken toys and do relatively well with it. My friend, he proved it. He proved it and if you don't believe me, you can check out the top 16 at the last Kingslayer Cards 1K event. That was last month. Yeah, last month, because it was February. Last month at this point, and, you know, it's proven. It's proven. Tamayura can compete with Jet. Tamayura can compete with Ava, and Tamayura can most definitely compete with Youth. which is actually like really going down at this point. It's actually like quite tragic how it went from the best deck and now it feels like the most bottom tier of all the tier 1 decks. But anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below. If you want one of these gorgeous mats, we are selling them. Check the description. We have all the information you need on how to purchase one of these bad boys. And later.